Welcome to another deep dive. Have you ever found yourself just looking up at the sky, day or night, and getting that weird feeling?
Hmm.
That little sense that maybe there's more going on up there than just clouds and planes? Stuff that's, well, hard to explain.
Oh, absolutely. Those moments of genuine wonder or maybe even unease.
Exactly. Well, today we're diving into the world of a man who basically made a career out of documenting exactly that kind of thing, especially the strange stuff happening in the sky.
We are talking about Charles Fort, an American writer, researcher,
Mm-hmm.
really a pioneer in collecting what we now call maybe paranormal reports
Mm-hmm.
or just unexplained phenomena.
Right.
His work came way before those terms were common, though. And he wasn't just collecting odd stories. He was actually challenging the scientific thinking of his day, asking, what if the things we dismiss, the things science ignores, what if they're actually important?
That's the core of it, yeah. Our mission today is to unpack Fort's idea of damned data. That's what he called it.
Damn data, yeah. Information rejected by the mainstream.
We'll look at his life, which was pretty interesting in itself, his critique of scientific certainty, and really dig into the aerial and astronomical stuff he found.
And you'll see a lot of it sounds very familiar to anyone interested in modern UFO reports.
It really does. So get ready. You might end up looking at the sky and maybe even reality a little differently after this.
Let's hope so.
Okay, so Charles Fort. Who
Okay.
was this guy? He definitely wasn't your standard scientist, was he? No lab coat here.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
He was born in Albany, New York, 1874. An autodidact, self-taught. Sources say he had this huge curiosity, but also apparently a real distrust of authority. Maybe from a tough childhood, some suggest.
An independent thinker then.
Very much so.
Mm.
After some early travels, apparently, he walked a lot of the way around the world.
Yeah.
He settled down mostly in New York and London and started his real life's work.
Which was basically reading everything.
Pretty much. For over 30 years, he just camped out in libraries. The New York Public Library, the British Museum Reading Room, and just went through stacks and stacks of scientific journals, newspapers, magazines, looking for the weird stuff, the anomalies,
And he wrote it all down.
on little slips of paper.
Ugh.
Thousands of them. He filled shoeboxes full of notes on things science couldn't explain, or maybe just didn't want to explain. He became this human database of the bizarre.
Imagine the scene. Just him, the books, the notes. You mentioned anomalous rain. He apparently collected 60,000 reports just on that.
60,000. It's hard to even picture. And yeah, anomalous rain is a great example of 14 phenomena.
Not just heavy rain, we're talking.
No. Reports of frogs falling from the sky,
Yeah.
fish, pebbles, strange fibers, even famously the Kentucky meat shower of 1876.
Ah, yes. The Kentucky meat shower. That's a classic. Chunks of meat just raining down.
Apparently, witnesses said it looked like beef, maybe mutton or venison. Some even tasted it, believe it or not.
Okay, that's brave. Or something else.
Right. The science later offered explanations like vultures disgorging their meal mid-flight. For Fort, too convenient. He felt it didn't quite fit all the details, or other similar reports. It was an example of science finding a neat answer and then stopping, ignoring the loose ends.
Which ties into his whole idea of damned data.
Exactly. That was his term for these excluded facts, the data points that just didn't fit the established theory, so they were ignored, damned by science.
So he wasn't just cataloging weirdness for its own sake. He was using it to poke holes in the scientific establishment.
Precisely. He saw science, in its own way, becoming dogmatic, like a new kind of religion almost, setting up its own truth by deciding which facts were acceptable and which weren't. He really challenged their claim to ultimate knowledge. He pointed out that, the need not to believe in strange things can be just as much of a prejudice as the need to believe.
That's a sharp point. Science often dismisses things as like errors in observation or just outliers, doesn't it?
Yeah, sweeps them under the rug rather than asking, okay, what could this mean?
But hold on, doesn't science need rules? Frameworks. You can't just accept everything, can you? Otherwise, it's chaos.
That's fair. And Fort wasn't necessarily against structure. He was against the rigidity, the absolute certainty.
Okay.
He had this idea that any claim to absolute positive truth is probably an illusion because the universe is continuous, right? Things blend into each other.
Like his analogy about colors, red isn't totally separate from yellow, they blend into orange.
Exactly. So if science draws a hard line and says, this is true, that is false, it's creating an artificial boundary that ignores the messy reality, the continuity of things.
So classifying things is useful, but pretending those classifications are the absolute final truth, That's the mistake.
That's what Ford argued. He questioned if anything could really be finally figured out because maybe there's nothing truly final to figure out. It's all fluid, interconnected.
Which, okay, that philosophical angle leads us straight into the sky stuff. His work on aerial and astronomical anomalies. This was long before the whole UFO thing took off, right?
Yeah, decades before. He was collecting reports of what we'd absolutely call UFOs back in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, documenting sightings of strange lights, disks, weird shapes in the sky.
Seen by credible people, not just random tales.
Oh, yeah. Astronomers, pilots, ship captains, regular folks. Daytime sightings, nighttime sightings, luminous objects, structured craft. He gathered it all.
Things doing weird maneuvers, stuff that shouldn't be possible.
Absolutely. Reports of objects moving at incredible speeds or just hovering silently,
Yeah.
changing shape. He even documented reports of triangle UFOs way back then, things we associate more with recent decades.
Wow. That's uncanny.
It really is. And one fascinating case he covered extensively was this worldwide atmospheric glow in 1883.
A glow, like the whole sky.
Pretty much. For months, people all over the world reported seeing the sky lit up with unusual bright colors. Scientists were baffled.
Okay, that sounds pretty major. What did they think it was?
Well, they didn't really know until the Krakatoa volcano erupted later that year.
Ah, so they blamed the volcano.
Bingo. It became the convenient explanation. Volcanic dust high in the atmosphere causing strange sunsets and glows.
But Fort wasn't buying it.
Not entirely. He pointed out that the reports of the strange lights had started months before Krakatoa erupted.
Ah, the damn data again.
Exactly. For him, it's a classic case of science, grabbing onto an explanation that fit most of the facts and then quietly ignoring the bits that didn't. The timing was off, but the volcano was a simpler answer than, well, something truly unknown.
And he wasn't afraid to speculate about that unknown, was he? He went into some wild territory.
Oh, yeah. He was one of the first, really, to seriously propose what we now call the extraterrestrial hypothesis, suggesting maybe these lights, these objects, were spacecraft from other worlds.
And he connected it to other mysteries, too, like disappearances.
Yes. He basically floated the idea of alien abduction decades before it became a pop culture trope, linking sudden, inexplicable disappearances of people or even ships and planes to these potential extraterrestrial visitors.
That's pretty radical for the time. What else did he theorize? I remember something about a Super Sargasso Sea.
Yes, the Super Sargasso Sea. His idea was maybe there's this region, stationary high up in the atmosphere, where things lost from Earth just collect.
Cosmic lost and found.
Sort of. And occasionally things would fall back down, explaining some of those weird rains, maybe. Frogs, fish, artifacts.
Okay, that's imaginative. And didn't he also have that really unsettling idea that maybe humanity is property?
Ah, the property hypothesis, yes. That's maybe his most provocative speculation. What if we're not the masters of our own domain? What if humanity is owned, controlled, farmed even, by some unknown intelligence or force?
That really flips the script on human importance, doesn't it? It's almost darkly humorous.
It's pure Fort. A satiric jab at our own sense of cosmic significance. He wasn't necessarily saying, I believe this, but he was putting it out there to force people to question everything.
Right, because he famously said, I believe nothing of my own that I've ever written.
Exactly. That's key. He presented possibilities, thought experiments, ways to shake up conventional thinking, not doctrines. His style was witty, mocking, insightful, outrageous, all mixed together. He was skeptical of all claims to final knowledge, including his own potential theories.
So he wasn't building a new system, he was just showing the cracks in the old one.
You could say that. He established this whole field of inquiry, the 14, looking at the paranormal, the unexplained, but not necessarily through an occult lens, more like data that science couldn't yet process.
And people picked up on it. He inspired others.
Oh, definitely. A following grew. 14s. Organizations popped up, like the 14 Society, founded by some big literary names like Theodore Dreiser and Ben Hecht, and later the International 14 Organization. People dedicated to continuing his work of collecting weird data.
And his influence went way beyond just those groups, right? I know science fiction writers loved him.
Hugely influential. Philip K. Dick, Robert Heinlein, Stephen King directly referenced Fort's book Wild Talents and Firestarter.
Right. And it wasn't just sci-fi. I remember reading the movie Magnolia.
Yes. Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, with the famous scene of frogs falling from the sky. That's pure Fort. He even gets a thank you in the credits.
And things like Art Bell's Coast to Coast AM. That show definitely had a 14 vibe.
Absolutely. That whole world of exploring high strangeness owes a huge debt to Fort. Even though some critics found his writing style difficult, maybe atrocious.
Yeah, I've heard that. Almost unreadable.
Others found it brilliant, surreal. The New York Times called it exhilarating. He was, as one writer put it, a dogged anti-systematizer.
Just piling up the data, showing that maybe the weird stuff isn't so weird if you just look at it without prejudice.
Exactly. Showing that the outrageous is the reasonable, if presented politely, and constantly reminding us that science, like everything else, can have its blind spots, its unconscious assumptions.
So he wasn't anti-science, maybe, but anti-dogma, anti-certainty.
I think that's a good way to put it. He's like an early voice, suggesting what philosophers of science like Popper or Kuhn would later argue, that science progresses by challenging its own foundations, by dealing with the anomalies, the damned data, not by ignoring them.
Which feels incredibly relevant today, especially with the renewed interest in UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Very relevant. Fort's work reminds us that these kinds of reports, these mysteries in the sky, they aren't new. They have a long, documented history that science has often struggled with.
Okay, so that brings us towards the end of this deep dive. Charles Fort. What a character. His dive into damned data, especially the sky phenomena, really did open up new ways to think about the unknown.
Yeah, he wasn't afraid to point a finger at the limitations of science, the things it couldn't easily explain or chose to ignore. He showed that the edges of knowledge are where things get really interesting.
He taught us that the line between accepted science and, well, wild speculation is maybe blurrier and more shifting than we think, right?
Definitely. Documenting the anomalies didn't always give answers, but it sure made the questions bigger and more interesting. He pushed for a more open-minded approach, maybe.
Maybe the biggest takeaway is just that the universe is probably a lot weirder, more complex than our current frameworks allow for.
I think Fort would absolutely agree with that. Embrace the strangeness.
So here's something to think about. The next time you see something odd up there, maybe a strange light, or hear a story that just seems impossible, pause for a second. Ask yourself, is this just noise, an error? Or is it maybe some of that damned data Fort was talking about? Is it challenging my neat worldview? And maybe consider this. What if science isn't really in the business of finding ultimate truth, but more in the business of organizing facts? And what if the real wonder, the really interesting stuff, lives in the gap between those two things?